I'm a young colorectal cancer survivor that was diagnosed at age 34. What were the symptoms that I experienced leading up to that diagnosis? Well, I'm going to give you all of the details on everything I went through in those months leading up to my diagnosis in this video. For anyone that's new here, my name is Jelena, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer in 2016. I didn't even know that rectal cancer was a cancer that you could get, but I got it, and I've lived to tell the tale. So let's get into what you're here for, what those symptoms were. It all started in June 2015. The smell of my gas changed, and it had become stronger and more potent. By August, I was getting tired of the really smelly, strong farts. So I went to one of our local natural food stores and got a probiotic to see if that would help. Well, shortly after I started taking the probiotic, I started experiencing some minor bleeding, mostly when I was passing gas. I would actually have to be on the toilet to pass gas, otherwise I would need to change my underwear. Yuck, I know. The blood was red, so that meant it had to be coming from somewhere near the end of my digestive tract. And there was mucus that was coming out with the blood. I stopped taking the probiotic, and shortly after, the bleeding stopped. So I assumed that the bleeding was caused by the probiotic. I gave myself some time to recover from the bleeding and flush the probiotic out of my system. So 2 months later, in October, I tried taking the probiotic again because I was still experiencing the really smelly gas. Well, as soon as I started taking the probiotic, the bleeding and the mucus started up again. So I stopped the probiotic, and again, the bleeding stopped. So I assumed the probiotic was causing the bleeding, and I was just going to be stuck with smelly gas forever. I mentioned the gas and the bleeding when I went in for my annual physical in February of 2016. But since the bleeding had stopped, my nurse practitioner wasn't super concerned, and she just said that if the bleeding did start up again, to give the office a call and they would investigate what was going on. She just seemed to think that the gas was diet related, even though I hadn't really changed anything in my diet recently. Well, 3 months later in May of 2016, the bleeding started again, but I wasn't taking probiotics this time. And I was passing bloody mucus with my stool. I had never had digestive issues before this, and had a stomach of steel. Nothing ever bothered my digestive system, so this was really out of the ordinary for me. I wasn't taking the probiotics this time, and now my stools were loose. So the symptoms returned, there were more symptoms in the mix, and they were more severe. It was time to give my doctor's office a call and make an appointment with my nurse practitioner. She had me try out a gluten-free diet to see if that would help, and then she also sent me downstairs to the lab to get a bunch of vials of blood drawn to see if I had any kind of food allergies that could be causing these symptoms. The gluten-free diet, it was tough to follow for a week because as a vegetarian, carbs are a huge staple of my diet. But I managed because I really wanted to see if that was what was wrong with me. After a week, my symptoms didn't improve after being on that gluten-free diet, and the test results all came back that I had no food allergies, so those were negative. So the next step, the nurse practitioner referred me for a colonoscopy. She thought that they would maybe find that I had Crohn's disease or maybe irritable bowel syndrome. The colonoscopy was scheduled for just a week and a half later, May 23rd, 2016. Now, if you start experiencing changes in your bowel habits, what should you do? Definitely check in with your doctor and keep pressing for answers until your symptoms have subsided. Some important things to keep track of for when you talk with your doctor are: when did the symptoms start? Is there anything that you do that makes the symptoms better or worse? Details of the symptom or pain, such as is it a dull pain or a sharp pain? Is the blood in your stool or is it in the toilet? If there is pain, does it start in one place and radiate to another? How severe is the pain? And how long have you been experiencing these symptoms? I did an entire video answering the question, what do I do if I think I have colorectal cancer? And I've put the card right up here so that you can click on it and watch that video because I go into much more detail than I have in this one. Keep in mind that the symptoms I experienced could also be the symptoms for many other gastrointestinal issues. So just because you're experiencing the same symptoms doesn't necessarily mean that you have cancer. But Be aware that colorectal cancer is on the rise in young adults, so don't let a doctor tell you that you're too young to be screened. In fact, if you were born in 1990 or later, you're twice as likely to be diagnosed with colon cancer and 4 times as likely to be diagnosed with rectal cancer as someone that was born in 1950. And one last frightening fact is that by the year 2030, just 8 years from now, colorectal cancer is going to be the #1 cause of cancer-related deaths in adults under the age of 50. Please click on the like button below if you enjoyed this video, and consider subscribing to hear more about surviving colorectal cancer and what life is like when treatment is over. Now, to find out how that colonoscopy went, you can click on my diagnosis video up here. Spoiler alert, it wasn't good. Or you can click on the playlist right below that and watch all of the videos that walk through those first few weeks of my cancer diagnosis. Thank you guys so much for watching.